Namaste, everyone. Welcome to the Cārvāka podcast. This is your host, kushalmehra. My guest today is Aprameya Radhakrishna, who is the founder of the Ku app. Aprameya, thanks a lot for coming on the podcast.
Thanks so much for having me, Kushal.
All right, so Aprameya, I actually wanted to start with this question first. First of all, I'm so happy and excited. I want to begin by congratulating you on the resounding success of the app. I myself am using the app regularly now. So first of all, congratulations on that, and thank you very much for starting an Indian alternative. Now that we've gotten that out of the way, I want to start with this question first. So how did this journey start for y'all? So how did you guys come up with this idea? Okay, let's get on into the microblogging sector and let's put up something that's going to be, let's say, a competitor to maybe other microblogging sites.
Yeah. So, we've been actually working on building for India for quite some time. So the observation was that there are multiple products and platforms for the English-speaking global audience. Various use cases. You can ask questions, get information. You can connect with other people. You can communicate. You can express yourself in various ways, right? So these are the things that have actually empowered us, right? Like being able to meet somebody across the globe, being able to communicate, being able to show your personality to the rest of the world and get discovered, right? It isn't actually when you just sit and watch content, right? So if you just had movies and videos that you saw on the internet, that is not what empowered us in the English speaking world. So if you look at the language speaking world, most of the products that have been there so far are consumption oriented. Sit and watch this video, sit and watch read news, right? So those are the kinds of things that are there. But what is actually important is that we bring the power of actually expressing oneself or asking questions or connecting with people to India, right? Irrespective of language, and that's what we said we'll do. And while building vocal, right? So we said, okay, we got a lot of our community which was answering, saying, why can't I just express myself? Why should I only talk? As in, why should I only answer questions, right? Why can't I just say what's on my mind? And that's when we realized that existing options are actually very heavily English, and the local language speaker, because they don't have the context of local language, they don't find the people who are liking local language, don't have an option right now. So that's how we said, okay, let's build a product, put it out there, solve for the local language first, and then see what happens, right? So that's how we started off. March 2020 is when we launched.
So when it came to deciding the name, so how did you guys go about deciding the name when it came to Ku? Because I was reading a few interviews, but I honestly did not get the detailed story. So I am actually genuinely interested. So how did you guys sit down and say, okay, we're gonna call it Ku? So how did that go about?
Yeah, so the premise of building Ku was actually to enable self-expression, right? And because it was self-expression, and that whatever you've expressed is going to be taken to a lot of people, the best depiction of that in an emotional logo is a bird, right? So we said, okay, bird is the most natural fit here. Uh, but it did come to our mind that Twitter also has bird, right? But the audience that we're going after is actually the local language audience, which may not have experienced microblogging ever before, right? So we said, okay, because we're going after a new audience, which does not know about existing English options, let's not deprive them of a logo of a bird, right? This is a whole new audience, and let's go and give them a bird. And the sound that a bird makes is Ku, right? So and the yellow color came from the fact that we wanted happy messages to be floating around. Cool.
So as of now, what we've understood from microblogging websites is that it's about the global world. We connect with everybody globally. English is the lingua franca of the world. Somebody from the United States of America is sitting there. Somebody from the United Kingdom or Brazil, or everybody comes together on one platform and communicates in the language of communication, which is English. Now with Ku, eventually, so a lot of people might come back and tell you guys that, okay, we get it that you're focusing on regional languages too, which by the way I love. Like, as somebody who kind of craves, I'll just give you just for an example. So Twitter or Facebook, they're known for satire. They're known for satire in English though. But I always say, imagine a scenario where you have regional language satirists in India coming on these platforms and promoting their satire. I mean, there is a tremendous amount of talent in different nooks and corners of India, not just in satire, whether it's music, whether it's even podcasting. You could have regional language podcasters who might be going around telling people about things. But at the end of the day, you guys are living in a global world where you're going to be competing with the overarching understanding that when it comes to a platform, it has to be global. So how do you guys maneuver around that reality, that when you restrict it to regional languages, you're going to be more India centric, and or is that the model of Ku, to be more India centric and then maybe in the next step go global?
Yeah, so we're going after what hasn't been solved, right? Like, even when I started Taxi for Sure, we knew that flights could be booked online, buses could be booked online, you could buy some stuff online with Flipkart, but booking a cab online was missing. So we said, let's start, right? We weren't thinking about, okay, can it go global? Can it, go somewhere else? We just said, okay, today there is a problem existing in India. Let's solve that, right? It's a similar situation, right? The local language speaking Indian doesn't have a place to come and express themselves, whatever is on their mind, on a daily basis on the internet today. The voice of local language Indian is absent on the internet, and that is what we're bringing onto the table, right? So we will focus heavily on solving that, localizing microblogging for India, and in the process we would have solved problems that local language users will be facing on existing platforms, right? And once we've done that very well, then taking it to countries which basically have non-English speaking audience as their majority, can be a growth story going forward, right? And you know how we look at it right now is, we're not our goal is not to connect the world right now. Our goal is to connect India in a way that it has never been connected before, right? So first goal is that, and then after we connect India deeply, can we connect the rest of the world to India? That we'll look at it as a part B problem to solve.
All right, that's very interesting. Then when it comes to content generation, as of now, today the content landscape is so dynamic. Like, I'll give you an example. Let's say, I'll give you from my point of view. So I do a lot of live streams for my podcast, where I tend to want to engage with live viewers. So let's say on Twitter, I have the option of Periscope, where I can link my account to my Periscope stream, and I can stream it live to my Twitter followers too. So in things like, there is Ku making a plan for giving certain options for like folks like me who want to do live streams, and who want to engage with their followers on Ku too, where they can also come up on these platforms and maybe start asking me questions and kind of interact with me.
Yeah, absolutely. So, who is about thoughts and opinions, right? It's not about lifestyle. It's not about finding family and friends, or it's not about professional networks. It is about thoughts and opinions, right? So, every format of sharing a thought and opinion will be supported by Ku going forward, right? So podcast is one way, discussions is another, going live video is another. So all of these As long as it encourages thoughts and opinions, we will definitely enable it on Cool.
So now a little bit on the side of I don't know if I should say it's a concern for me as an avid user of social media platforms. So we've seen a history, right? When with big tech, eventually what happens is that every time a new platform comes in, eventually what you see is big tech. They have these monopolies, and they kind of overwhelm the small player in the market. Now, I don't know, like recently there was a news of, I think it was, Amazon refusing to host a website on a platform or stuff like that. So are you guys in a way worried about that with the kind of, because today, unfortunately, whether we like it or not, the world is so polarized in a very weird way on social media or not in reality. I mean, if you step out of your house, everything seems fine, but it's just a, somehow you enter on the social media platform as if the world is burning or something of that sort is happening. So how are you guys, are you conscious of that kind of an pushback that could possibly be given to you guys also? Because for people to take offense about a platform is very easy. Even when you guys announced it, and in India there was a certain section promoting, okay, I'm going on Coup. I could see people, even before, you guys being given an opportunity to come up and establish yourself and say, okay, we are here, we are doing this. There were, haters who come and say, nahi, nahi, Coup to aisa hai, Coup is like that. So are you guys conscious of that? And if you guys are, so what are you guys doing about it?
Your question is about, are we conscious about all kinds of feedback that's coming our way, or
I mean, feedback, and also this, I personally have this fear, the way the world has gone, that every time big tech follows, these platforms. So as an Indian, I would love for a Indian
yeah,
platform to stay there for India. So are you guys kind of working around that?
yeah. So I think it's extremely important to understand the history of us building technology. So uh, you know, we first built through service companies technology for the world, right? Then we said, okay, there are a few more use cases that the English-speaking Indian wants, which is buying online, getting a job, booking flights, booking buses. All of that got sorted. Now is a time when we're actually saying, let's build our own social media. What is different? So we've been building technology, but who we build for has been changing, right? And if you look at how it's correlated on who we build for, we've always built for the person, for the user who has access to technology, who has access to the internet, who wants more technology, right? So in the first phase with Infosys, TCS, Wipro, we built for the Western world, but we coded it along with their teams, right? But the demand for technology came from there. The access to internet was there, right? Then the English speaking Indian got access to internet, and then they demanded for services online, right? Then we built that way. Now there are more number of people accessing the internet in India than most places in the world, right? Only China is ahead of us. Now, given that so many people have access to internet, the demand for products on the internet is also going to go high, right? And the and India is so unique in the way we use different things. One small little tweak there, here or there, a different product emerges, right? So now is the time for us to say, okay, we now have so many people who have access to internet. It's time to create our own social network, right? Why didn't we do this before? Because people didn't have access to internet, right? So now that they have it, now there is a need to build a social network. Next, after this phase, there will be even more demands from technology, and there is nobody else who will understand it more than an Indian company and an Indian entrepreneur, right? So once we solve unique problems of India, some of that will be taken abroad as well, saying, this is a uniquely Indian problem we solved. If anybody else in the world is interested, please use the product. So we're seeing a transformational shift right? And while this is happening, the world may not, like all of the world may not like what is happening, because we're usually the people who are either adapting technology from west or east or wherever else, right? We've never actually built very deep products for ourselves. So I think it's a starting phenomena, like, where there will be haters, lovers, all of those things. But as the world and Indians get used to the fact that we are capable of building world class products from India, it will take a phase, right? It will take a phase for us, for our resources here to develop that ability to build, right? And we will all have to come together to accelerate it. But we will hit a place very soon where we will build better technology products than anybody else around the world, right? So today, yes, what you're saying, okay, there are people who hate you, there are people who love you, all of that will happen. But soon it will be accepted that Indian technology can be trusted, can be used. It's an alternative that we have to all the players who are there already.
So one of the things that I wanted to understand was, at the end of the day, for any kind of platform like Koo, while it is not only just the amount of downloads on the app, it is also about how many people are active on the app and how many people are using it actively to interact with each other, to promote their products, to promote their ideas, to to do multiple ranges of things. Now, in such a market where every single portal, whether it's Facebook, whether it's WhatsApp, whether it's Netflix, whether it's all of them, look, at the end of the day, the market is about, they're all vying for our attention. It's about how much attention are you going to give to my platform. So what is that strategy that Koo has adopted that is going to make sure that people who initially go on Koo would kind of retain the retain retaining the audiences is what I'm trying to look at,
Yeah.
because the global market is so huge right now. So do you guys have something special in that case?
Yeah, so we're going after a user who's never experienced microblogging ever before. So the same wow uh, feeling that we got 10, 10, 12 years ago, when you could suddenly connect to your friend halfway across the world and actually chat without paying for SMS. So all those wow moments are happening for a lot of other folks. Sitting in a small town somewhere in Madhya Pradesh, I'm actually chatting with my friend who came to Bangalore, right? I'm able to follow their thoughts every day by following them on Koo, and I'm following them in my local language, right? So all these experiences that we have taken for granted as English-speaking audience, because we're so used to the products now, those wow moments are happening for the Indian language speakers through products like Koo. So when you get that wow moment, retention is naturally solved, right? Because it's a new experience that has never been experienced before. Hearing from the most influential people of the country, talking to them in their own language and not through a media, right, is happening for the first time for them, right? Like following somebody for their thoughts, whether it's an actor, cricketer, politician, whoever it is, and them speaking to them in their own language live, as and when it happens in the influencer's life, is something that the English speaking Indian or user takes for granted now, but the language speaking user is seeing it for the first time, right? So retention is natural because it's a new user.
All right, now I want to enter into a couple of areas which there was some concern raised on privacy issues about Koo on social media. I know you had come out with a clarification too about that on social media itself, but I just wanted to take this time to give you an opportunity to maybe explain about this issue in detail, because I think privacy is a major issue. Privacy should be taken seriously in this world, especially in the kind of things that we keep hearing about on a daily basis. Something or the other keeps popping up. So
Yeah.
what exactly is Koo doing in as far as privacy of its users is concerned?
So one thing that is very important to understand, is privacy has been spoken about, or it's in the news because of the WhatsApp policy, right? Like that came up. Uh, so WhatsApp is a very different network from, an open network like Koo or anything else. What you put out on Koo, as a user, you want as many people to see, right? A one-on-one messaging app, you don't want anybody to see apart from that group or that person you send a message to. So the expectations of privacy are actually different, right? In this case, you want to lakh people more to see what you've said, and hence you become popular. And what you're writing is a coup. You are projecting it to the world so that the world knows you better. What you're putting in your profile, I am a male, I live here, I like this, all of those things are things that you're building a public profile on, right? You want as many people to know what you're saying and about you, right? So
Mhm.
these are, so on a one-on-one messaging app, privacy is 100x 1000x more important than an open network like Koo, where you want more people to see. One, that is a very important understanding of what to expect out of Koo. Second, if there is a login detail like my email address or my phone number which is leaked, right, or which is accessible to a hacker, that shouldn't happen, right? So in our case, 96-97% of our users actually use the phone number to log in. So phone number is not visible, not available, you cannot get our phone numbers, right? There was an email which we had just introduced and not really worked on, because there was 2-3% of our users who are actually using email to log in. So we never, got into detail of securing it or anything like that. And the sudden burst of users happened last month in February, and we got to our notice that okay, email is something that is visible, right? Now you can't do too much with an email because emails are everywhere, but we still took an action and made sure that even emails are not visible, right? So this is broadly what it is.
All right. So another issue, and Aprameya, this is a very serious issue because I mean, if you know the news, recently Twitter has been at loggerheads with the government of India, where the government has demanded certain things from Twitter, and then there was a lot of back and forth. Now, at the end of the day, you're running a platform. There are going to be all kinds of elements on the platform. You're going to be making all kinds of statements on the platform, and now with the new policies also, there is a new amendment to the IT Act that has come. I think the government has given 3 months time in total for all the companies, and that would naturally include Coup too, because being in the same segment. Now, in this kind of a scenario, my question is more into, you know, how do you yourself see Coup as a company? Because there's so much debate around, is Twitter or Facebook, are they publishing platforms? Are they tech platforms? Are they just enablers? If they're just enablers, then how do we go about this, problem of government saying, okay, XYZ is a problematic thing, and not just government, people coming and reporting handles or talking about issues. So I get it as a complex subject, and it is a very fine line to walk on, because there are just millions of users at the end of the day. I mean, how many millions of users are you going to manage? But what is the Coup policy then? How are you guys going to deal with all these things on a living, active basis where
Yeah.
these issues are going to pop up?
So here's how we look at it, right? So the internet gives the power of acceleration to any message. Okay. Um, so what you would have said offline in a room of people, if you said it, it would go around in the room, and then people would take it home and tell a few more people, and then it dies down, right? What the internet does is actually accelerates that spread of message, right? Very, very fast, faster than ever before. So it's only fair that the creator of any content, uh, keeps in mind that if I will not say this offline in a group, in front of a group of people, right? Uh, I should also not say it online, right? Because why are you not saying it offline? You can't say, let's go kill this group of people offline, because that's against the law of India, right? The laws of the land. You can't incite violence and tell people, let's go and do something harmful to a person or a group of people. Now, if you won't do it offline, you shouldn't be doing it online either, right? Because especially online, because the acceleration is so much more faster, right? So I think freedom of expression and speech is important, but along with it, the creators need to understand the impact of what they say, right? Do not cause harm to an individual or a group of individuals, or go against any law of the land when you're saying something. It is the same as what you would do offline in a group of people, with a group of people.
So, but again, in that scenario, right? So when you guys were designing your policy, right, every like Twitter has its own policy, I mean, and it keeps changing all the time. So do you guys have like an active team that is going to be working on the policy, and the policy is going to be working around all the time? Because to be very honest, I mean, I'm a consumer of the app, right? At the end of the day, I'm a user of the app, I'm a consumer. From a consumer's point of view, what I have always had a problem with when it comes to Facebook or Twitter is that we just don't understand the policy. Okay, I can't say this, then suddenly I can say this, then one day I can't say this. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm left with that gif, "Arey bhai, kehna kya chahte ho" kind of a situation. So are you guys conscious of that issue, and is Koo going to work on making the life of the user very easy from day one, where
Yeah,
the user or the person generating the content on Koo, because at the end of the day, even a small Koo is the content, right? It
yeah,
knows that, okay, these are the lines I'm going to work in, and these are the lines I'm not going to take out.
correct. So see, this is so if you're a journalist, right? So you have a code of ethics to follow, right? When you're writing, your writing has the power to reach lots of folks, and hence the code of ethics governs what you write and don't write, right? While you make your statement and you give out your opinion, or you give a balanced view, whatever the style of the journalist is, uh, but you won't incite violence. You won't say something that goes against a particular community, or things like that, right? So when it comes to microblogging or micro creation of content, the same rules should apply, just that you're not a journalist, right? There should be a unsaid code of ethics that you follow, that is in line with, okay, let's keep this. I have the freedom to express, but I will also make sure that it doesn't hurt people around, right? So I think that's a balance. And because of the new laws, or the guidelines from the government, uh, whether you're a big social media company or a small social media company like ours, the rules are the same, right? So how you would behave on one platform is the same you would behave on another platform. It Just because you're larger doesn't mean you can allow people to say something else, or you operate with the people of India, and hence all the guidelines are the same, which is actually good, right? So you know, that's what I would say. Yeah.
All right, Aprameya, this is again, I'm a content creator. I monetize my content. So again, this is you can say a personal interest question, but it's also, I think it would interest a lot of other people. Now,
Yeah.
but in my opinion, the beauty of Koo is that, as you've clearly said, you want to focus on the regional languages of India, and it's
Yeah.
just a sea of talent there.
Yeah.
But it all boils down to, how do I monetize the content that I produce? Now, the natural corollary would be like, let's say, before TikTok got banned, there was an army of TikTokers in India who would, find unique ways of monetizing their content through TikTok. Now, does Koo in their future plans have some sort of, let's say how Patreon exists, right? So maybe I'm a content generator on YouTube, but then I can open up a Patreon subscription where people can, pledge some monthly support things, and Patreon takes a share of it, and I kind of generate revenue through that. Now, for content generators of India who generate content sitting inside India, and a lot of people, I'll give you my case. A lot of people sometimes who are in India, they say, we don't want to support you via Patreon. We want to support you via Indian platforms, through Indian products, through Indian spaces. Now, has Koo something in mind where, let's say, I could be a podcast generator, I could be a short video generator, I could be something like a TikToker, I could be someone who just writes books or something of that sort, or audiobooks. Have you guys considered monetizing this platform in a revenue sharing kind of a way, where in the future, if the platform becomes big, there are people who can actually use the platform actively, where there is some sort of a revenue sharing agreement?
Yeah, so we're still in the growth phase, so not actively looking at monetization right now. Uh, but yes, as in if there should be a motivation for all content creators, right? Some platforms have a natural motivation of, okay, I get famous here, I don't get famous anywhere else. Who basically is bringing together a whole new set of users that have never used microblogging ever before, right? So for them, just the fundamental experience of, oh, okay, I can voice my opinion on the internet now and make it reach a lot more people is itself satisfactory today,
Mhm.
right? Then there will be some power users who create really awesome content who would want extra monetization, right? Who want a reason beyond, okay, I have a following, right? So that is something that we will work on, right? We have a lot of ideas on how we could do a non-advertising way of monetization, which impacts both the content creator as well as the platform, right? Advertising is the simplest way. You allow brands to advertise and show their ads, and you make money off it. So yes, We are thinking in both directions. We will always also give an option to not be part of the advertising and upgrade subscription if you want to. So those are all thoughts right now, and we have the advantage of learning from international products from their journey, and already have some data points on what users like and what they don't like, and we don't have to just learn from one part of the world. There are various parts of the world who have monetized social networks in various ways, so we can always look at that.
All right. So before I let you go, Aprameya, I have to ask this question. So since the pandemic has hit, basically, your life, everybody's life has taken a U-turn, but especially you guys at Cool. I mean, do you, in a way, I should not be saying this, but in a very weird way, do you think you were at the right place at the right time? And it's been a whirlwind year, right? I mean, especially in the last few months, the coup has just exploded. So how
Yeah.
has been the journey for you and the team at an individual level? How you guys been managing it?
Yeah, so I think a lot of things came together for us. So one is we started coding with the insight of giving a voice to non-English speaking audience of India. In November 2019, we launched Who in March 2020, and COVID hit. We actually, started working from home immediately, and it took 6 months of 16-hour days to just accelerate making the product, right? Because we had started in Kannada, then we launched in Hindi, language by language, improving the experience of using the app. We've spent a lot of long nights not sleeping, etc., right? And in the last couple of months, we've seen a bigger uptick, and we never knew that something like this would happen. We actually weren't prepared either. So the last month when the huge uptick happened, we actually had I think we were taking naps at night, 2 3 hours maybe, and it was quite hectic. But it was all fun. It was all for building our product. It was all for making sure users had a great experience. And the larger goal of having our own technology platform, right? Like, it's extremely important going forward, and we're all motivated to be contributing in multiple ways to the future of the country.
Absolutely. I couldn't be more happy for you guys. It's been an absolute, at least for me, as someone who lives in India and who always was looking forward to the idea of having an Indian platform, kind of, right there in the thick and thin of things, and giving us Indians a great opportunity to, connect with our own people without having, the hanging sword of, oh, this is a foreign company. They could, switch the lights off on us any moment they want to. I mean, I have to say, I couldn't have been more happier for you. So Aprameya, once again, congratulations on the success of Ku, and thanks a lot for coming on the podcast.
Thank you so much, Kushal, for having me, and it was a pleasure talking to you. Hope to do more podcasts with you.
All right. So, guys, it's time to wrap up the discussion. You know the drill. If you like the podcast, please subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, like the video, share it with others. Also, if you're not on Ku, please go and open an account on Ku. I already have an account on Ku. It's Kushal_Mehra. And if you like what I'm doing over here, you can support the channel by becoming a member on YouTube, or subscribe on Patreon, or buy the podcast merch. I'll see you guys next time. Until then, namaste. Take care. Goodbye.